Come together, oh you parts of me, scattered and carried by wind and wave to distant lands. Let us remember that wholeness is our natural state. Come together, bones and flesh, devastated by battles lost and wars long forgotten. Taste the air in our lungs once more and relish its flavor. Come together, it is time at last to part with the stillness of night and embrace the day with open arms.
Hello and welcome to Space for Action, Rebuilding a Sustainable World. For the next hour or so, we will hear from musicians and climate activists across disciplines and institutions who all believe that we can build a post-pandemic future that is sustainable and equitable for all. Climate change is an issue that affects everyone, and we encourage you to take this time to reflect and listen with a posture of imagination, hope, and readiness for action. At the end of this event, there will be time for group discussion and follow-up. We hope to connect and inspire action in every field and community represented here today. We are all part of the fight to save our ecosystem.
Before we move on in our program, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that most, if not all of us on this call are presently residing on stolen land from native tribes who are the original stewards of what we now call North America. In the greater Boston area, we reside on the land stolen from the Wampanoag and Massachusetts tribes. Let us take a moment to acknowledge how we continue to marginalize, kill, and ignore the crucial wisdom of indigenous peoples in the U.S., and how they were forced to endure multiple pandemics when America's first colonizers landed on this soil. We have a link in the chat if you'd like to check out where you are in the US and what native peoples, indigenous tribes are the original stewards of that land. We opened our program with an original composition by Ricky Richardson, jazz artist and educator in the Boston area. Thank you, Ricky. Next, we have our first speaker, leader in climate activism and social justice movements, a fellow of Boston's Green Justice Coalition, and founding pastor of New Roots AME Church in Dorchester, Reverend Mariama White-Hammond.
Hello, it's good to be with you this evening. Wherever you are, I think many of us are in the Boston area, but there are also folks from many different places. And in this virtual moment, we miss being in each other's physical presence, but we are also leaning into the opportunity to connect even more across the boundaries that usually divide us. So in my tradition, I want to begin by saying good evening. And I know that I can't hear you all saying good evening back. The call-in response doesn't quite work on Zoom like it does in church, but good evening, I say to you, recognizing that for some of us, this actually is a statement of faith. To say that it is a good evening means to imagine and let go of some of the anxiety that we feel. To say it is a good evening means that for this moment, we take a little respite from the suffering that we see around us in so many places. As we're in this COVID moment, I think one of the hardest parts is being separated from people that we love. Not being able to be in their physical presence. I'm a hugger, and even when I go to my parents' house to take them their groceries, my mom says she loves me, but she also walks behind me with alcohol wipes, wiping everything down as I go. And I haven't been able to give her a hug in more than 6 weeks now. I worry sometimes about our children growing up in an age where we think that showing love means not being in proximity, and the challenge that that means for us in this moment. I think particularly about one of my family members that I miss, my goddaughter, Soraya. For many of my family members, I've been able to be on the phone with them, and I have with her too, but as a 5-year-old, her attention span for phone chats is limited. So I see her and then she bounces off somewhere else, runs back in, tells me something, and then bounces off somewhere else. I love Soraya. She is strong, she's confident, she's intrepid. Even as we speak, I have been making cookies for her that are cooling down right now. She's allergic to eggs, so she's shortbread cookies, no eggs, no milk. But I think a lot about Soraya because when she's here, and like I said, she's confident and intrepid, which means that she also finds her way getting into trouble sometimes. And often when we have a moment, I have to put her on the timeout step. As she gets taller, her timeout step went from being step 1 to step 2, and I'm sure that any day now she'll be on timeout on step 3 on the front steps. I think that the reality is when I send her to timeout, it is my hope, although sometimes it's not always the case, that she will sit on the step and reflect on the thing that has led her there. Sometimes I think she's reflecting on how she can beat me by waiting on the step and still getting off and still holding whatever opinion it is that she already had before or whatever it is that she did. But it is my hope as a godmother that putting her on that timeout step is a moment of reflection, a moment for her to think about how she needs to be different, how she can approach that space differently. The truth is that right now, we as humanity have been put on a timeout step. We have a moment to sit and to reflect on who we've been and who we want to be. Now, we could do what sometimes my goddaughter does, which is your timeout time comes up and you jump up and try to ignore whatever put you there in the first place or go back to doing the exact same thing you were doing before. Or as she matures, I see her when we have our post-timeout step reflection time, not just running away from me, but being able to engage more deeply in a conversation about what needs to shift and change. The purpose of tonight is for us to begin a conversation. Maybe for some of us, it's the extension of a conversation we've already started about what is required of us as humanity in this moment where we've been put on timeout. This timeout moment has given more respite to the planet than she's had in a long time. We are not driving or flying or pumping out emissions at the same rate that we usually do. We are not dumping. We are not throwing away at the same rate that we usually do. And for the first time in my neighborhood, I can hear the birds taking over in the morning, filling the trees, laying their eggs, and embracing this spring probably as the best time that they've ever experienced. But we won't be on timeout forever. The moment will come when we get off of this and we are asked to think about whether or not we are people who are ready to shift, to be different, to emerge from this changed. For some of us on this call, we've been very engaged around climate change issues. Maybe the future that we're looking at has gotten to us. Maybe we experience deep levels of climate grief as we consider the future that we're facing. Maybe this grief has even made us paralyzed, unclear about how we can do or affect anything. My invitation to you today is that maybe by yourself you cannot shift things, but together we have an opportunity to change the course of human history. For the first time in my lifetime, people are paused. People are asking hard questions about who we are and who we want to be. Many of us, for the first time, are seeing our trash collectors, seeing our janitors, seeing our supermarket workers, people who have always been doing important work, but far too often been completely unappreciated and overlooked. For the first time, we are talking in some instances about health inequities that are leading to some people literally dying too soon. And so we have an opportunity to take this moment, this time out moment, and ask, who do we want to be on the other side of this? You're going to hear from lots of great people tonight who will frame for you the specifics of the science of climate, political action, and artistic expression, all amazing ways that we can act. And then you'll have an opportunity to be in conversation with folks. Because the question for tonight is not just to have a good time, not just to be inspired, but to discern what is each of ours to do, using our collective gifts and talents, what is possible that maybe wasn't before. How does this become the moment in which humanity begins to trace a shift, a turn, a new way of being that reflects the urgency of this moment, that takes care of those most vulnerable? This is the story that I hope to tell Soraya. That when she's 15 and 25 and living in a world where we take inequity much more seriously, where we have turned the corner on climate emissions, it is my hope and my prayer that I tell her it all started with us taking seriously a moment of time out to shift, to change, to be the people we are called to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Mariama. We will now hear from Edmar Colón and Tutti Druyan. Edmar is a saxophonist, pianist, and composer from Puerto Rico who is currently on the faculty of the Berklee College of Music. Tutti is a singer, songwriter, actor, and voiceover artist, and they have both performed worldwide. Today, they will be performing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So it is my pleasure to introduce my dear friends, Tutti and Edmar.
Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops awake above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. So why, then why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't why, oh, why
Incredible, thank you. And by the way, everybody, if you want to show your appreciation for the performers and the speakers, feel free to use the Zoom clap hands or thumbs up feature. That thumbs up means a lot to us. So thank you again. That was Edmar, Colón, and Tutti, Druyan. It is now my honor to introduce a person who has been on the front lines of the fight for environmental justice since we began to understand the effects of human activity on the climate in the 1980s. Award-winning author, journalist, and environmentalist Bill McKibben is a founder of 350.org and is currently the Schumann Distinguished Scholar in Environmental Studies at Middlebury College. With his writing, Bill has a unique ability to deliver the hard truths we need to hear while still inspiring hope, all the while bringing us deeper into our respect and awe for the natural world. We are very honored to have him here with us tonight. Please let us virtually welcome Bill McKibben.
Well, thank you very much. What a pleasure to be with you all. Reverend White-Hammond, I've been missing church immensely, and I'll look forward to getting to Boston so I can sit in a pew at New Roots AME, but that was really good tonight to be in your church. And Representative Pressley, thank you for helping remind us all that we don't need to be cynical about all our political leaders. And Esperanza, Spalding, what can one say? My favorite bassist since James Jamerson anyway. And you know, what a pleasure, too, to hear all these other voices that I didn't know before tonight, and to be reminded how much we need each other's voices. One of the things that happens in these weeks is a kind of silence falls across our lives. And yes, it's a moment for reflection, but man, the gregarious part of our beings is dying to get back out of detention now and able to be. And so thanks so much to the people who put this together tonight. Let me offer just a few reflections as we're in this time of pandemic about the larger crisis that goes on all the time, this climate crisis that will dominate our century. First thing, we're reminded in these weeks of the most basic fact of all, that reality is real, that physical reality can't be wished away or compromised away or negotiated away. It doesn't matter if you get up at a lectern and, tell the coronavirus that it's a hoax. It doesn't care. I've spent the last 30 years trying to convince people that physics and chemistry matter, that they can't be spun or talked away. In just the same way, the COVID microbe is reminding us now that it sets the limits and we need to listen. If it says stand 6 feet apart, then 6 feet apart we need to stand. And that message going forward has got to be, we live in a world where we stare into screens all the time and where it's easy to forget what reality is about, and we're getting a reminder. Second, a key feature of that reminder is that timing is everything. The US and South Korea had their first case of coronavirus on the same day in January. The South Koreans went to work. They disrupted their lives, no big gatherings, started testing everyone. They're now looking at this in the rearview mirror instead of having it come crashing through the windshield like we did, because we delayed. We didn't flatten the curve in time any more than we worked to flatten the carbon curve 30 years ago when scientists first issued their warning. That means that the action we have to take now is both disruptive and will inevitably be accompanied by lots of loss and pain, even in the best of circumstances. But it doesn't change the basic reality that speed is everything, that we have to go at a different pace than we've been going in dealing with the climate crisis. There are no silver linings to something like a pandemic, but out of this kind of trauma, we best learn something, and that something probably should be that speed is essential. The third and final thing is that social solidarity is absolutely at the root of what we have to do now. America has lived for the last 40 years under the political spell of Ronald Reagan, on the idea that markets solve everything, that we should each just pursue our own self-interest, that, as Mr. Reagan said, the 9 scariest words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." But we know now that that's not the case. The scariest words in the English language are, "We've run out of ventilators," or "the hillside behind your house is on fire." Okay. And those kind of problems we can only solve when we work together. And when I say together, I mean not just those of us in America. These are both global problems. We're all dealing with such trauma that it's hard to remember places in the world that are under extraordinary. Imagine trying to lock down in India with 1 billion people and being told to wash your hands in places with no running water. But then also imagine that you're in Delhi and you're getting the first lungful of clean air that you've ever breathed in your life. We need to take the things that we can see around us, that clean air, that clean water, and we need to cherish that too. We need to not go back just to normal. We need not to just set up the pins in the bowling alley again. This is a moment when we're being offered, as Reverend White-Hammond said, a kind of reset, an opportunity to think differently about what the future might look like. And I hope and trust that we will take that opportunity, but only if we all work together to push it in the most powerful ways. So many thanks to everybody here tonight.
Society is gasping for air. Life, as we know it, no longer acknowledges us. We are turning over the soil. This jungle of ideological innovation, once teeming with life, is now exposing its decay. Vines, intent on suffocating, are choking on themselves. It is time to cut back on what has become invasive. Mother Earth will not wait around for us. Or is Mother too abstract for you? Life giver, supplier of all that we take credit for. Yet this machine that we have so carefully constructed and carelessly empowered won't stop for us. Producer of that which sustains nature. In her resilient splendor, she won't stop for us either. Will we walk alongside her or bulldoze ahead? Body and mind. She's not some pledging to be conquered, coddled, colonized, civilized. She is warrior. Force that brings you to your knees. She is also beauty, laughter, wonder that will bring you to your knees. The present is bringing us to our knees. What will we grow now? In this turning soil, ripe with the remains of mishandled provision, what will we learn in the wake of our blunders? Grief, clenched like a fist in our throat, longs for release into a rallying cry. Let the echoes of our present chaos to our shadow always remind us that we leave behind. Let the echoes of present chaos slip into our shadows, always remind us of the echoes of present chaos. Become shadows, always remind us of what we leave behind. What we leave behind. Let it remind us what we leave behind. What we leave behind.
Thank you so much, Peter and Tiandra, for that reminder, this moment of what we are called to, and you make it sound really good. So it's a great, beautiful combination. So I want to just take this moment really quickly to introduce a woman who really doesn't need much of an introduction. I have known her since 2009 when she became the first Black woman, woman of color to serve on the Boston City Council. And then after that moment, she worked hard to make that city council open. And now we have a city council that is predominantly women. And for the first time has many people of color. And so, I've watched her for years. In 2016, she was named by Grist as one of the 50 fixers. And in 2018, she ran in a race that everybody told her she couldn't do, like she just should wait her turn, and she pushed through, and she won and is now representing the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District. Ayanna Pressley is a champion. She speaks her mind, she is powerful, and she speaks with conviction. But again, what I love the most about her is that when she opens doors, she makes sure that other people are able to walk through them. She makes sure that folks whose voices have not been heard are centered, are heard, and not just that, she's a masterful policymaker. She's drawn a little ire from those people who don't like strong, bold, smart women. And I am so thankful to call her not just my congresswoman, but also my friend.
Let me get situated here. That was so generous, my sister. I'm going to say a few words about you in a moment, Reverend Mari, but first I just, I was reminded as I was listening to these incredibly talented, moving artists who are lending their skills to this moment. I've always believed every single person has a role to play in the movement. Some people will recite a poem, some people will spit a rap, some people will sing a song, some people will use the pen, use the paintbrush, but a microphone. We all have a role to play in the movement. And recently I was in Alabama, shortly before things got to where they are now with this pandemic, to recreate the Bloody Sunday March and walk the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they were talking about the role of song in the movement. And one of the elders said that you may cage the singer, but never the song. And I was reminded of that as I was listening to these very moving and uplifting artists today. So thank you. In my faith tradition, we say it's a sin to have a gift and to not share with the world. So I want to thank you for sharing your gift, for lending those so generously to this moment. I'm honored to be invited to this virtual table today at this critical juncture and crossroads for our nation, for our world. I want to thank my sister, Reverend Mari. When I first found out about this event, I said, if Mari is a part of it, I know there's going to be music. And so I'm so grateful that there was today. And when I think of Mari, I'm always reminded of the African proverb that said, when you pray, move your feet. And Mari is always praying, and she is always moving her feet, organizing, mobilizing, coalition building every single day. She is indefatigable in the pursuit of justice. Before I get into any more formal remarks, I do want to pause and just take a moment to say that I hope that you and those that you love most are safe and healthy physically, emotionally, and spiritually. This is a difficult time for so many reasons, but I want you to know that you are not alone and we will get through this. I'm grateful that thanks to technology, although we are physically distancing, that we can make sure that we are not socially isolating and that we can continue to come together in community and be connected. This is especially important as we continue to build and grow and to inform joy. Mara, you may recall after my Washington, D.C. swearing in, I came to Roxbury Community College for a community ceremonial swearing in. And I had everyone take a pledge, an oath with me. And I won't enumerate every tenet of that pledge that I had community take with me. And I did that because we do this work symbiotically. This is not work that I do alone. And even if I could, I wouldn't want to. I love the chosen family that we find and we build along the way based on aligned values and vision, like all of you that are part of this virtual table this evening. But one of the tenets of that pledge said, I will inform joy. And we know that joy is a necessary act of resistance. And so I thank all of you for the role that you have played in shaking the table, in inviting others to this table, and for informing joy. This conversation is timely, not only because this week we acknowledge the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, but of course because of the intersectionality of our fight to address this global pandemic and its ties to our fight against climate change and environmental injustice. I mean, really, it's at the center of all of this. We are seeing every inequity, every injustice that everyone that's a part of this and beyond that we have been in organizing an activist community with have been working to dismantle and to mitigate and to address. All of these inequities and disparities become exposed and further entrenched in this movement, in this moment, whether you're talking about food insecurity or housing insecurity or water insecurity. People, there are those, no one here, but those that think that that's just something that happens other places. But no, and water insecurity. And so this pandemic is exposing these deep systemic inequities that have long been present. But what this moment is also exposing to Reverend Murray's point earlier, is an opportunity to rebuild in a more equitable way. And I've heard so many people saying recently they can't wait until we return to normal. I don't want to. I know you don't want to return to a normal where Black and Brown communities disproportionately suffer these health disparities that could be combated with equal access to health care. And by our acknowledging and addressing and dismantling actively structural racism and the collateral consequences of that structural racism, yielding food deserts, transportation deserts, and other disproportionate burdens of environmental injustices. Returning to normal is not an option, not after this COVID-19 respiratory illness has pulled back the last of the veils on environmental injustice. We cannot return to normal when minority and low-income communities unevenly bear the brunt of the health consequences associated with air pollution, as Black and Brown families are exposed to 60% more air pollution than they cause. COVID-19 is killing those with asthma and other respiratory problems caused by living in highly polluted areas. Being poor should not be a pre-existing condition, and no one in this nation should have to be wealthy in order to be healthy. And the cost of asthma medication to treat pollution-caused illnesses is skyrocketing. Now, let me share a story with you. Just last week, y'all, I went to get my replacement inhaler. The generic brand that I used was sold out and with a wait list. And I was told that my option was an inhaler that cost $175, while my usual copay is $10. Even breathing. I mean, everything is political, including just breathing. 50 years since the establishment of the EPA, we have a president, or as I like to call him, the occupant, he's simply occupying space, who continues to invest in the failing fossil fuel industry and who is rolling back air and water pollution standards, deregulated fracking sites, plants and factories built without consent in our poorest neighborhoods. We stand in the footsteps of great resistors and table shakers, and we will continue to fight for progress in a real and tangible way. This pandemic shows the interconnectedness of these battles, that our fight for a just economy, healthcare system, and environment are all tied. Yesterday, I was in DC voting on an additional funding to address this pandemic. The legislation that I voted to pass included my proposal mandating that the CDC release data on race and ethnicity when it comes to COVID-19. I fought for the inclusion of this data because history shows us Black and Brown communities do bear the brunt of all our public health challenges, in large part due to the impacts of pollution and global warming. We can now get that data that confirms the disparities, and we can save lives with that data. It's not collection for the sake of collection. It's so that the resources can follow where the data is going. With this information, we can get ahead of this. We must continue to do more. I hope you will join me in continuing the fight for Medicare for all and to address racism in our healthcare system, for affordable asbestos and lead-free housing for all, and better food access, and of course, for a Green New Deal to save our most vulnerable populations already suffering the impacts of climate change. We have an opportunity here, an obligation to build a more equitable future. And I'm so grateful for all of you frontliners, you community builders, to be your sister in solidarity and actualizing that vision. And for those that don't get it, I have great confidence in your powers of persuasion and influence and storytelling to bring others along. Thank you.
Blake, thank you so much for gracing us with your deeply thoughtful music. Ram Blake is a third-stream pioneer, devoted educator, deeply involved in protest music and a devoted connoisseur of film noir, a true bright, shining light in the world of music and beyond. Much, much gratitude too to Representative Pressley for her amazing remarks. And now, speaking of pioneers, our next special guest is a true force of nature that since the inception of her career has been propelling her field forward with mighty speed and depth, while inspiring many to explore their highest potential as artists and human beings. Please help me virtually welcome Grammy Award-winning artist and big advocate for a climate and natural environment, and paraphrasing from Reverend Mariama's words, I get to call her my dear friend, my sister, Esperanza Spalding.
I'm out the house of worship, rife with pride, rife with doctrine, rife with sin. Out my laptop or devices where I shop for wisdom. At my very fingertips, so much more than some holy man could ever hope to comprehend. So maybe now the Holy Spirit is simply a mighty network, anchored in accumulated knowledge, now encompassing the globe. Zeros and ones no one can touch. You must be whole. So, have you prayed to your phone today? Atoning for our ignorance, we bow our busy heads to seek immortal wisdom from the cloud, rolling down the social mountain to the tablets in each hand. 8 billion new commandments at my command, and some I post to Google humanity, but while you do, guard the animal in you. God's the animal in you. In you, no pride, no greed, no sin. Guard the animal in you. In you. In you, guard the animal. God's the animal in you. But when you ask the web anything, it's always there for you. Though the answers may not be true, searching an engine for the ghost of truth. While the animal in you, God's the tangible in you. In you, your heart, your guts, your skin, God the tangible in you. In you, God the tangible, dance the animal. Amazing grace, I miss you badly. I can't search the meaning of the word, so to love it sadly. With all this forward-leaning grace, if it's in me, what good is all this reading of the word? Open attachments eating into my time for living grace. If there is a God out there of the word, once you've ended famine and warfare, grace. If you would just make these endless emails disappear of the word, oh, and show us how to fix the climate while you're here. Your search for help did not match any documents. Suggestions, make sure our words are spelled correctly. Try different keywords, try more general keywords. Try new word keywords, maybe try using real words. Try using your words, ask another humanoid. Try asking the one you are trying to avoid. You'll say, accumulated knowledge now encompassing the globe, zero the ones no one can touch. You must be whole to understand the burden of evolving man. But may you not become a stranger to God, the animal in you. God, the tangible in you. In you, no service page or pin. The program you came in with. God, the tangible
Thank you so much, Esperanza, for giving such beautiful voice to the thoughts that roll through so many of our minds, but when they come out of your mouth, they sound angelic. So thank you. I hope that the voices you have heard have spoken to your spirit, that the art and the music that we've experienced has gotten and touched you in a place that maybe nothing else can. And each speaker and artist has really issued a call to action, not simply to enjoy this moment, but to lean into this moment and to figure out what we are called to. And I know on this call, I've seen some of you, there are artists, there are activists, there are folks who work on environmental issues and many other issues. And so I want to, before we go into our breakout rooms and a time for us to reflect, for us to think about those things that we are called to do in response to what we've heard this evening, I want to give each speaker just a moment to share if there's one last couple of sentences that you want to issue as a call to action or reflection as people head into their breakout rooms. And so I will cue first to Rep. Pressley, then to Bill McKibben, and finally to Esperanza. Just, is there a two sentences, a word that you want to capture for us to be thinking about?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Am I muted? Okay. I think everything has already been said, and I know you need to get to these breakouts. So what I just wanted to say in this moment, what I'm feeling is just immense gratitude, and just what a gift it was to be in community with all of you. And to your point, Mari, as beautiful as that is, that we have to lean into what will be required of all of us beyond this moment. And so revisit this beyond today, because it will fortify us in those most challenging moments as we seek to build intentionally a more just and equitable world, and personally and outwardly informing joy along the way. I do have one quick action though, which is like my new thing. If everyone will put your hands up to the corners of your screen, we can all hold hands. Just touch the edges. Nice. Thank you. Blessings.
Bill, take it away. What do you want us to be thinking of?
Look, I'm so just overwhelmed by the music and the words tonight. I just, I think we need this so much right now. I think if there was some kind of machine that could record ambient sadness in the atmosphere, I think our country right now would be, the needle would be pinned in the red. So many people mourning, so many people terrified for those around them that are ailing, so many people dealing with the job they've lost or they're gonna lose sometime soon. And that I think the phrase that just has to be in our minds and hearts all the time is, we're all in this together. If we can't figure out a way out of this together, then we will not figure out a way out. So that's what we got to do.
Thank you. And Esperanza, what's on your mind? What's in your heart?
Oh, so much gratitude. Thank you for all of you who organized this, and thank you for everyone who made time to share presence. And I just invite anyone with the gift of music to recognize the power that we have right now to contribute to the healing and the buoying through this moment. And on the other side, if we weren't sure before that music is a basic human necessity, I'm sure on the other side of this we'll be even more reminded of how potent music is in our lives. And hopefully we can all show up as advocates to make sure that these artists are well-fed, well-housed, and have all the things they need to be able to serve our communities. So thank you.
Thank you. And to Rand Blake, do you have a final word before we break? What's your reflection in this moment? Oh, wait, we can't hear you. Hold on. All right, now we can hear you.
I'm very happy to play a small role in this very important gathering. And we owe so many thanks to the health workers. And it's very important we stay together, fight for peace, climate, and tolerance.
Thank you. So you have your charge, everybody. We've got to figure out this road together. And so now you have the opportunity. We'll be breaking up into breakout rooms for you to begin this conversation with the folks in your room. Each room will have a facilitator that will help frame the questions.
Yeah.
The conversation.
Hear our heart beat like the drum, loud and sure. Feel the life rush through our veins, cool and pure. Now the oneness of our spirit shall endure. Say, oh yeah, come.
We offer this deep gratitude to each of you in bringing our collective spirits together in this moment. And there will be so many more opportunities for us to go deep with each other, asking the question, who do we choose to be? And so the blessing for this evening is that we choose to be as bold and as beautiful, as imaginative, and as loving as Creator has called us to be, that we emerge from this moment the people that we've always hoped to be, and that because of that, the world is forever transformed.
Thank you so much, Reverend Mariama, and all the guest speakers, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Bill McKibben, Esperanza Spalding, Ram Blake, Ricky Richardson, Peter Godart and Tiandra Ray, Tutti Druyan, and I'm Edmar Colón. Thank you from Space for Action, and now Peter is going to continue in some others that may happen.
Yes, and thank you again to the people who brought this to you, especially Fred Harris, who's been a visionary throughout this entire process and has been a pivotal member of the Space for Action team. Cami, Tedoldi, Susan Wilson, Cuco, Daglio, Kalina, Schloneger, Isabel, Daglio for making this happen on the production side of things. Shout out to Julie Newman and Susy and Nicole at the MIT Office of Sustainability, Heidi Erickson and MIT Center for Arts, Science, and Technology, Aaron Hartley and DekTor for helping out with RAN, as well as to Lisa Cunningham and DJ who helped out being moderators. And I'll kick it off to Tiandra, who will tell you how to stay connected once this event ends.
Great. So thank you all for sharing this space with us. We hope that going forward you feel empowered to fight climate change along with everybody else here. Space for Action will continue to host events and conversations to encourage interdisciplinary action and cooperation. If you'd like to be involved or stay updated, please check out our Facebook group where we will continue the conversation via subgroups and resource sharing. So I can throw that in the chat in a second. We will also be sending a follow-up email to all participants so that you can all stay involved, and we'll send some resources. We'll send the link to the Facebook. And yeah, that's all that we have. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this, for joining. We have people from all over the country, and I was super excited. I love the breakout sessions and everything. So we'll be chatting with you soon.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Maybe Susan or Cami can open up everyone. Everybody can have a mass violation of everybody. Yeah, that's it. Get the waves happening. Yes, everybody speaks at the same time. Everyone can speak at the same time.
Much love to everybody. Much love to everybody.